Hey guys, it's Brandon from Hypothetical. We've had quite a few requests recently for some information on seller financing or seller finance deals. So we put together a case study. This is a property that we acquired not too long ago with a seller carried loan. So we'll dig in here a little bit and look at this as a case study. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brandon. I'm the Vice President of Systems at Hypothetical Insight, an investment real estate solutions company, as well as donewithrentals.com, which is our deal sourcing subsidiary. I've been licensed since 2015 practicing real estate. I've got a Lean Six Sigma black belt as well, so I've had that since around 2016. Used to flip, did a couple flips a year, and I've got a pretty extensive background in construction, both residential and commercial. Right now, we're primarily buy and hold, so we look at small to mid-sized multifamilies and some commercial or mixed-use deals, and we just entered the short-term vacation rental industry as well. We structure quite a few of these purchase money mortgages, which is the terminology we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. And we're local to the Columbus, Ohio market. We'll look at three parts: the pieces, the parts, the terminology, the deal, and then we'll jump in and look at some quick tips to help you guys in the future. All right, so part one. The terminology here is purchase money mortgage. You've probably heard this referred to as a lot of different things. Folks just kind of throw these terms out casually. So you've seen probably some of these. And the correct terminology that we're using here is purchase money mortgage. And that's actually the way that we're structuring these deals. With the what and the why, it's basically a strategy to take ownership of real property without bank involvement. And basically, the owner is going to extend a note and mortgage to us and service the debt. So they're going to stand in the place of the bank. So these are transactions basically where we've got owners that act as the bank and actually service the debt. So the premise is pretty simple here, and we'll cover some more details here as we move through content. Basically, banks suck if we look at the why side, and there's a lot of complications when we use banks, meaning if we apply for a loan, we get our credit pulled, they look at our debt to income ratio, and a myriad of other things. When we structure a seller carried note, purchase money mortgage, we avoid all these. So we don't have applications or credit checks or DTI. None of that stuff is involved. It conserves our cash so we can spread out our down payments. If, for example, we put $50,000 down on a single property with a bank loan, perhaps we could put $10,000 down across 5 properties on a seller carried type of a basis and really scale quickly. There's a bunch of benefits to this, both on our side and the seller side. We don't have mortgage insurance, really flexible. We can close these very, very quickly. We can take title in LLC, which we cannot do if we use a bank loan. And there's a lot of freedoms here to structure these how we want to. For sellers, there's no real estate commissions, so they've got some in pocket that they're going to save. And they basically have a whole host of other benefits. And that's kind of what we're going to go through here, how to structure that. And that applies mostly to our individualized questionnaires that we use when we interview sellers. Ownership is always best, but control is okay. What we want is ownership in fee simple or fee simple absolute. That means that we have the deed in hand. And that's what a purchase money mortgage is. If we look to control and we take a position that's equitable, these are more complicated. There are a lot more moving parts. They're kind of messy, and they're not to our advantage because we basically don't have that deed, and we have to meet some terms before we can actually own the property. The focus here is free and clear owners. So we want folks that basically have 100% equity position, that have paid off their mortgage entirely. That equates to decision-making ability and much cleaner deals. So the pieces of this type of a transaction would be fourfold. So we've got a note, a mortgage, a deed, and a title. The note is basically a promissory note. I don't know if you've ever owned a car, but this is basically what you've got. It's a pretty casual term. Folks call it a note payment. A mortgage is a fairly generic document. It just outlines the debt repayment, and it's referred to as a lien. The deed is the defining legal ownership, and that's what transfers the title, and the title is actually the interest or the ownership interest. It's referred to as a bundle of rights. So let's jump in and take a look at the actual deal. Chickens and randomness. So this is just kind of how random real estate works. I was personally on the hunt for some yard birds. I was going to get some chickens for the yard, and I was introduced to a gentleman. We learned that Chicken Man has a property, and then we find out basically that he's got a tenant that he's having a lot of problems with. He's older, he's retired, he just doesn't want to deal with this. So I see the opportunity, and what I'm going to do next is invite him to coffee and just maybe chat about this situation where I can get in front of him and get a personal read on what the situation is. So here's the property. This is 875 Demrest. It's pretty modest. This is an easy property to start with. These are actually gold mines if you can buy them right. There's not a whole lot to them. They're real simple. This one's a 3-1, 925 square feet, C plus. It's in a pretty good working class location. It's generally in good shape. We might be dealing with an eviction situation, and we know roughly that the owner wants about $80,000 for this property. So what we do is look to owner needs. That's the most important part. So we found out that he's older, that he's retired. He doesn't want to deal with the property. He just wants to be done. His focus is on his farm and animals. That's basically what this guy wants to do, is get away from this property and spend more time on his farm. I also learned that he just bought a new tractor, and he's a little bit stressed over the down payment. There's a tenant in place, and he hasn't paid rent in months. So this guy is basically squatting in this house, and the property owner just doesn't want to deal with it. We're also looking at that possible eviction situation. What I'm going to do next is jump into due diligence, and this is basically the research. So this is all the stuff, all the fact finding that we're going to have to do to determine value of the property and really find out what we're looking at. You don't necessarily have to be a real estate professional to do this. And just here on this slide is an example of just some common sites, Redfin and Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com. So we can put enough of an image together to get a read on what we think value might be. So we see some properties that are contingent up here, top left. There's some interesting stuff here. Remember, he wants 80. And we're seeing these are selling 121, 122, 145. That looks pretty good. We look at the neighborhood median listing price. We see that it's 128,000. We think that the current estimate, according to Redfin, is about 84,540. There's some Zillow stuff here that'll tell you about what you're looking at. And then we see on Realtor.com, bottom right, a median list price of 119,900. So just to ballpark it, this property might be worth $115,000, $120,000 when we get it repaired and cleaned up. So what I'm going to do next is basically draft an offer, and they're real simple, the pieces of these offers. So for this one, what I'm going to come in at is 65,000. Remember, he wants 80. I think 65 is going to be where we open to get a quick close and to really take those problems off of his hands. I'm going to offer 5,000 down. I'm going to ask for a 36-month note, 5.5% interest. We're going to amortize this over 30 years. What it's going to produce is a $341 a month note payment. We're going to direct deposit that to the owner, and then we're going to have a balloon. So payment 36, we're going to pay this off 57,776, and his total payments are going to get close to 70. So when he collects all the interest on this over that 3-year period, his purchase price, his total collected, is really going to be $69,700. Since I'm opening at 65 and he wants 80, I'm going to offer some concessions here. So I'm going to cover all of the closing costs, with the exception of his prorated property taxes, and those are going to show up on the closing or settlement statement as a credit to the buyer or to us, and we'll take it in as-is condition. Once I walk through, I know exactly what I'm looking at. It just takes a few minutes. If there's no structural issues, we're going to be fine, and we'll accept it as is. So there's really no contingencies that he's going to have to deal with. So we've got due diligence, we've got offer drafted. The next steps are to present that offer to the owner. He's going to accept it just because I know, what he needs, what he wants. We've spent a lot of time looking at this. Pretty confident that we're going to get this deal under contract. Once we do, we're going to send this to our title agency. They're going to take care of most of the heavy lifting. They just need the contract in hand, and they'll do all the title workup, the background searches, and prepare title insurance and things like that. Also going to send this to our attorney. So our attorney is going to draft the note and the mortgage. And there may be a couple of other documents in there as well, sometimes referred to as a resolution, or if we're taking title in LLC, or if we're making transfers or things like that. So the lawyer is going to draft all those documents, and they're not expensive. We'll pay less than $500 to have everything drafted up. So once the note and mortgage are ready, the title work is complete, we're going to go ahead and move to close the deal. Here's just a quick look at this one. Real modest. It's not in bad shape. It's got some upgrades. The systems are pretty good. The tile's good. It's a little dirty. So we need a heavy cosmetic, probably $4,000, and this property is going to get it ready for a tenant. So here's the numbers on this property. Here's a settlement statement as well, but we put down $39.78. So those were our total settlement costs, and that includes attorney fees. So that's pretty low out-of-pocket costs. We paid for, and we always do, paid for the annual insurance policy up front. We get a discount. So this was $763 a year for a landlord policy. The reno we estimate is going to be $4,000, and we're going to spend $1,000, getting utilities set up and transferred, and deposits and holding and electric and things like that, just to kind of hold the property until we get done with it. So our total out of pocket is going to be $10,000. It's really not too bad on a property like this. Our purchase price was $65,000. We've got a $60,000 loan balance. We found out our after repair value is $115,000. So we bought this property at 50%, 57% of after repair value. And right off of the bat, as soon as we get this renovated, we've got $55,000 in equity. So that's kind of the power of these deals, is we can come out of pocket $10,000, and then we can walk away with $55,000 in equity within just a few short weeks. The gross annual rents are going to be around $10,500. Remember, we renoed this. The systems are okay, so our operating expenses are going to be low. We assume 30% of the income that the property generates. So OpEx is $3,150. Our net operating income then is going to be $7,350. Our debt service at $341 a month is going to total $4,092 per year. So we've got cash flow before we pay our taxes of this property of, $260 or $270 a month, to total $3,258 a year. This is a 33% cash on cash deal. It's a cash cow. It's a little bit crazy when you think about what people will settle for, and then what we can actually achieve when we structure these purchase money mortgages or seller carried loans. And again, this is a very, very modest property. You effectively can retire with 6, 7, 8 of these once you get them paid off free and clear. You simply don't need 100 units. A couple of these modest ones that are considered home runs will do just fine, and you've got a lot less headaches. So let's talk about some quick tips on this one. Life's random. Remember, this is just how random this works. And basically all the deals that I've structured as purchase money mortgages work out in a similar fashion. They've all got an individual story. Real estate really has very little to do with the physical structure of the property. It's all about people and personalities. So that's where you've got to focus. And don't be afraid to admit that you don't know everything. These guys are going to ask questions when you're in front of them. If you're new at this, you may not be able to answer all those questions, but don't leave anything open. Learn how to structure a deal based on solutions to the seller's pain points. So you've really got to listen to what the sellers are telling you the issues might be, and then you've got to work hard to bring a solution to those issues. A good title agency and attorney will make or break your business, especially if you're structuring these purchase money mortgage deals. Title is going to do all the heavy lifting. They've got to know how to draft the settlement statement in these transactions. So make sure that they're qualified to do these deals. Most every title company can do these. And a good attorney to draft your note and mortgage, it's not going to completely kill you on fees, is a must. If you can't explain what you're doing in these situations to a sixth grader, your odds of success really decrease. So remember, simplify as much as you can. And always be professional with these types of transactions, but approachable. You don't need to show up in a suit and a tie, but you don't want to show up in jeans and a t-shirt either. You want to be prepared, but you want to be approachable when you're dealing with these types of transactions. So Here's a couple resources, and I'll get these slides out as well. We'll post them up on the website, and I'll show you our contact information here. If you want these directly, I'd be happy to email them to you. So here's a comprehensive guide. This is to closing your first seller finance deal. It's pretty extensive, so I think this is maybe a 30-page guide that's really chock full of information on how to structure these. Here's an explainer video, and we present this to all of our sellers, and this is the ability to explain what we're trying to accomplish to a sixth grader. It's easy overview of basically how a pretty complex transaction works. Here's a blog post too, if you guys want to jump in, check out how to generate off-market deals. And then this is a pretty interesting one-pager. We give this to all potential sellers, and it helps explain basically the overview of the transaction. And it's just a one-page flyer here, and that's going to answer the most common questions that they may have when you're dealing with one of these transactions. All right, guys, thanks for your time. I'll post this out on YouTube. I'll send the link, and then I'll put this on the website as well. If you want access directly to slides and or additional content, or if you have questions, here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out and connect with us. Thanks.